Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with whole roasted leg of lamb. That's right, this Easter-inspired video features whole leg of lamb flavored with pomegranate, garlic, and herbs. And take it from someone that's made many whole leg of lambs over the years, this is one of the most delicious versions I've ever had. And not only is the taste spectacular, but this is also very easy to make and requires absolutely no special or hard-to-find ingredients. Except this one. Pomegranate molasses. And all this is a very thick, reduced pomegranate syrup. And I'll give more info about this on the blog. But if you live in the Middle East, or a large city, or have internet access, this is not that hard to find. And as I'll explain in the post, you can actually make your own. But anyway, we're going to start with some pomegranate molasses. And then to that, we're going to add a whole bunch of things that are famously delicious with lamb. The first of which would be some chopped garlic. We're also going to add some freshly chopped rosemary, some Aleppo pepper. And you know that's a Syrian chili flake, kind of a medium heat, very delicious. You can, of course, use regular chili flakes, or in a real pinch, cayenne. We're also going to want some freshly ground black pepper. And then, of course, we're going to need some salt. So we're going to put in a nice big spoon of kosher salt. We'll also toss in a little bit of ground cumin. And then last but not least, some dry mint. And you could certainly use fresh mint for this. But there is something about the dry mint that I do prefer for this wet rub. And then all we're going to do is take our spatula and mix this until it looks like something you totally would want to smear over a large hunk of meat, which is exactly what that looks like right there. Okay, so our wet rub / marinade is done, and it's on to the aforementioned large hunk of meat. And there it is, a leg of lamb. It's about 5 pounds. It's not a full leg because it doesn't have the shank, and they're perfectly fine to roast just like that. But for this kind of recipe, we need the leg to be deboned and butterflied, which the butcher will be happy to do for you. Of course, they're going to charge you extra though. So for me, I like to save a few dollars. I like to buy it like this, and I'll just take that bone out myself. And you can too. It's super easy, so check it out. Just take your knife, make one cut there, and then we'll make another cut there, and then boom, that bone comes right out. I mean, how easy was that? Okay, sorry, I'm totally messing with you. That was way too fast to see what I actually did. But don't worry, the next video we post is going to be how to debone and butterfly that leg of lamb yourself like a professional butcher. So please stay tuned for that if you want to do it yourself and save a few dollars. But regardless, whether you do it yourself or get it from the butcher, you're going to need one deboned, butterflied leg of lamb, which is what I have right here. And then once we've created or procured a deboned and butterflied leg of lamb, we're going to go ahead and open it up and make a couple extra slashes here in the thickest parts, like 2 on each side, maybe about 1 inch deep, not too far. And why we're doing that is to create a little more surface area for that marinade to get into. And speaking of marinade getting into, we'll also flip it over and we'll make some slashes on the fat side, but not too deep. I just want you to barely go through that fat, just barely touching the meat. And those can be totally random, slasher film style. So go ahead and slash it all over. And that's going to help that wet rub permeate that surface a little better. And then once we've completed our gashing and slashing stage, let's go ahead and grab our wet rub and spread 3/4 of it onto this meat side. And if you're not into math, that means almost all of it. And we want to make sure this is completely coated. I'm talking every nook, every cranny, and even every crevice. They all need to be thoroughly spread with this mixture. And then once we spread about 3/4 of that mixture on that side, let's go ahead and gather that together and flip it over into a bowl. And then we'll take the last quarter of that wet rub, also known as the rest of it, and spread it all over that fat side. And then once that's been completed, we're going to go ahead and wrap this in plastic and refrigerate this overnight. And will it work with a shorter marination time? Possibly, but I don't know. I've only made this and done it overnight. And it is quite amazing, so that's what I'm recommending. So we're going to refrigerate that overnight. And then the next day we're going to go ahead and pull it out of the marinade. And I didn't show it here, but there will be some accumulated juices in the bowl. Just let any excess drip off. But we're still going to be left with all that goodness inside. And we'll look something like this. And then the next step here to prep this for the roasting pan would be to tie it up. So we're going to gather that together with the seam side down, fat side up. And we're going to use our standard tying giant pieces of meat up knot. So you're going to go underneath. And we'll do this first tie right in the center. You're going to loop that string through about 3 times, which will allow you to cinch it up. And you'll finish your knot just like that. And then just in case you're new here, once more with feeling, slide that string underneath, cross it over, twist it through at least 3 times. And because you've twisted it through a few times, when you pull it this first time, it's going to cinch up nice and tight. And the friction will keep that cinched until you finish the knot. Just a very simple and effective way to tie up large pieces of meat like this. So I went ahead and did 5 of those total. And as you can see under here, everything's being held together very nicely. All right, what you're shooting for is what we call in the business a nice, tight package. Okay? And at that point, we can go ahead and transfer that into our roasting pan. And I'm going to put mine on a rack, because I have one. And the nice thing about using a rack is it's going to let me pour some water underneath this roast. And not only is that going to humidify the oven and make for a great roasting environment, it's also going to prevent any of that pomegranate molasses from burning onto the bottom. So I'm suggesting you set yours up this way as well. All right, but you decide. You're in charge of hydration administration. And then before we pop this in the oven, I am going to go ahead and salt the outside, which I really should have done on the cutting board. I wish you guys would have said something. But anyway, no big deal. I just sprinkled mine on in the pan. And of course, as always, no, not enjoy. Put lots of salt. It's a giant hunk of meat. So it looks like a ton, but it's not. And at that point, our leg of lamb is ready for the oven. So we're going to go ahead and pop that in a 350-degree oven for about an hour and 45 minutes, or until we have an internal temperature of about 135 to 140. And when it comes out, it should look something remarkably similar to this. And yes, because we use that pomegranate molasses, you're definitely going to get some burnt ends, which are absolutely delicious. And then a piece of meat this big, you're going to have to let rest at least 15 minutes. And while you're waiting, you could do a couple things. Of course, anytime we have a roasting pan that's got stuff in the bottom, we love to add a splash of stock or water and deglaze that amazing fond. And that, plus maybe a pinch of salt, is going to make for an amazingly simple and extraordinarily delicious pain jus to serve with that. And then the other thing I like to do, besides cut off the strings and transfer this into some kind of gorgeous serving platter with appropriate herb garnish, is that I also like to paint over just a little bit more of that pomegranate molasses, just to shine it up a little bit. That stuff has such a beautiful color. It's just going to give it a little more of an appetizing glow when you bring it to the table. But anyway, I went ahead and shined mine up a little bit. So by this time, the meat is rested. We've gotten our uzinaz at the table. Our pan sauce is done. And I think we're ready to start slicing. And the beautiful thing about a leg of lamb is there's something for everybody. You like well done or medium well? These outside slices are going to be your thing. And even these slices, from the driest, most well done portion of the roast, are still incredibly juicy and tender. Look at that. In fact, I'm going to eat a piece right now. Oh, yeah. Just so juicy and tender. And again, that's the outside, driest, most well done pieces. And of course, as you continue to slice in, it's going to get juicier and pinker. And then let me fast forward to the cross section here. And you can see it's just absolutely perfect. You like medium rare? We got it. You like medium? We got it. You like medium well? We got it. All right, so leg of lamb really is great for a group, which is obviously one reason it's such a popular special occasion roast. And then, of course, it was time for the official taste test, so I sliced myself off a few pieces, spooned over those natural pan juices. And that, my friends, is just a spectacular way to eat leg of lamb. All right, I already mentioned how tender and juicy the meat is. And of course, everybody knows that garlic and herbs go perfectly with lamb. But when you combine it with that little bit of sweet and sour tartness from the pomegranate, it just takes it to a whole nother level. Just amazing. And like I already said, stay tuned for the how to debone and butterfly your own leg of lamb, which I will demonstrate in excruciating detail in the next video. So anyway, please stay tuned for that. Or not. Like I said, you can just buy this already butterflied from the butcher. But either way, I really do hope you give this delicious leg of lamb recipe a try. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.